well, let me just say we're privileged to have Ron Turner here, the Supervisor of Elections. He is probably the most sought after guy, and he's only going to get more popular as November comes around. So we're very grateful that you were able to spend some time with us, Ron. I know this is a busy year and you're going to have an even busier year. Welcome.
I appreciate that, Eileen. And it's good to see a lot of familiar faces there on the screen, and great to be with you. And I'm sitting here on the 7th floor of the Terrace building. So my personal office in the building is at the corner of Ringling and 301. So I kind of have a downtown condo view myself here every day, Monday through Friday, some nights and weekends too during an election year. So it's great to be with you and to talk about the elections coming up. We have the primary election August 18th, and we have the general election November 3rd across Florida. There's a lot to vote on in this upcoming primary, or the coming primary election. In fact, vote by mail ballots to military and overseas voters are being mailed tomorrow. So those will be the first people to get their ballots, first voters, and the first ones they'll start returning to us. So this election is underway, and it has been for us for a while now in the elections office behind the scenes getting ready and continuing that planning and logistics process. And we will continue that beyond the November 3rd election here. I know back in March, we had the statewide presidential preference primary in Florida. And so that was March 17th. And as you all know, on March the 1st, Governor DeSantis announced the first coronavirus cases in Florida, which were in Hillsborough and Manatee County. Of course, we all know, and I heard actually the night before through a call from the county administrator, that it appeared to be a case at Doctors Hospital. And as we know, that was the Manatee case that the governor announced on March 1st. So here we are 2 weeks out from a statewide election, and we're seeing our first cases of the coronavirus, and one right here in our own community in our county. And so it impacted us greatly right away. Within days, poll workers started dropping. It takes hundreds of poll workers to help us staff the polling locations throughout Sarasota County, and then hundreds of temporary employees that we hire to help us through early voting and process vote by mail ballots, etc. So it really it's a huge team effort countywide to conduct an election in a county the size of Sarasota County, with 328,000 registered voters now countywide. So we ended up losing or having positions unfilled for about 180 poll workers. And we ended up consolidating about 15 or 16 polling locations. And the reason that we did that was because we had to make more effective use of the poll workers that we had. Because under Florida law, you have to have certain types of positions filled for poll workers. They perform certain roles. And then from our own processes and procedures, we have to have a certain number of people to fulfill certain functions that we have internally here in Sarasota County when we conduct elections. So I'm mentioning all of that as we move into August, because what we're seeing now is obviously an increase in vote by mail. And I would remind everyone listening that in Florida, vote by mail is simply no excuse absentee voting. It began in 2002. It was passed as a state law back then, 18 years ago, as no excuse absentee voting. In 2016, the state of Florida changed the name to vote by mail. Nothing has changed in 18 years, so we're not talking about anything new, not to any great degree anyhow, as far as the voter is concerned, with this process. I bring that up because I think often there's some confusion with terminology in the public. We do not have mail ballot elections in Florida when candidates are involved. And when I say a mail ballot election, I'm talking about an election where we just automatically mail ballots to all the voters in a jurisdiction for an election. Since I've been in the elections office here in Sarasota County, we've only had one mail ballot election. that was for the town of Longboat Key for a referendum, because you're only allowed to do those type of elections when there is an issue on the ballot. When they're candidates, you can't do a mail ballot election in Florida. And it's a whole nother set of laws to conduct that election. So what we're talking about is vote by mail and absentee voting, no excuse, are the same thing in Florida. So I'm trying to get that word out to groups in the public right now. We have now, because with vote by mail, you have to request a vote by mail ballot. We don't automatically send those out. We have in excess of 104,000 vote by mail requests for this primary election. Anyone who's familiar with having run for office or involved with the process and things here know that is a record. We've never had that many for a general election in Sarasota County. That's a significant number, and it is growing throughout every day. So by every hour that goes by, those numbers continue to increase, because individual voters can call us to make a request. They can go online on our website. And so we're getting those requests in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, processing them here. So as I said, the first ballots in the primary go to military and overseas voters, vote by mail ballots, July 2nd. Then the first mailing of domestic vote by mail ballots go July 9th. So next week, we begin mailing the vote by mail ballots to domestic voters. There's a lot for everyone to vote on in the primary election here. I think everyone knows we have closed primaries in Florida, but we have a lot for everyone to vote on regardless of their political party. For example, we have a universal primary contest for sheriff, meaning the sheriff's race is on every ballot in Sarasota County, regardless of party affiliation. So everyone gets to vote on that, and that becomes the general election, essentially.
Excuse me, Ron. Is someone speaking? Please put yourself on mute. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hearing some feedback. So
yeah, might be feedback. Yeah.
So the sheriff's race becomes basically a general election in August. Everyone gets to vote on that election. The others that everyone gets to vote on are school board races. Districts 2 and 3, those are nonpartisan. Everyone in the county gets to vote in those races, regardless of your political party affiliation. And then the others are state representative District 70. If you're in District 70, that is another universal primary contest. Everyone in that district gets to vote they'll have it on their ballot. And then, of course, the city commission races in Northport and in the city of Sarasota. Obviously, for the city of Sarasota, this is the first time we've had the August and November elections for city commission races. And those are single member district races, kind of like county commission now. And districts 2 and 3 will be on the August ballot, and district 1 will be on the November ballot, because the way this works under the charter amendment that was passed in the city of Sarasota is that if you only have 2 candidates for a city commission race, it automatically goes to November. If you have more than 2, then you have to have the first election, and then you have the top vote getters that will go to the November election. So that's all brand new, along with the county commission districts, which are now single member districts. So voters only vote for those in their particular district. So there are a lot of ballot styles in the county. We literally have hundreds of them throughout the county, because everyone doesn't get the same ballot based on where they live and based on their political party, or maybe they don't have a political party. So there's a lot for everyone to vote on in August. And then in November 3rd, I call that the Super Bowl of elections, which is a presidential general election. And obviously, we will have an even higher turnout for that election, as we always do. Before the coronavirus, I was predicting potentially an 80% turnout in Sarasota County for the presidential general election. So some of the challenges that we've had going into August and November, again, are poll workers. And we've been doing a large recruitment effort to try to get new poll workers.
So are you still recruiting, Ron? Do you
Yeah, we are. We're still.
do you want to give a website or anything?
Thanks, Eileen. So if someone is interested or knows someone that's interested in potentially being a poll worker, they can go to our website at Sarasota Votes, VOTES. There's an S on it, sarasotavotes.com. Right in the center of the homepage, you'll see a poll worker application link. So we're trying to get as many as we can for that, because we'll have some people that typically work with us that will not be coming back, probably because of the virus. And even some new people may end up, before election day gets here, not working with us, even if they've initially signed up. So this is a little bit of a, again, kind of like Vote by Mail, a daily, hourly process to try to recruit, train, assign, and that'll be constant between now and November. And then we've had a few polling locations that, not many, but a few that would prefer that we not come to their location to bring people in from the outside. Part of that is because, and I know that the mayor was going to talk about this, but the mask ordinance that you have in the city of Sarasota does not apply to us in elections, even in the city election and city polling places and things. That's not how this, how it works. We will have, for the poll workers, they will have masks, face shields, sanitizing wipes. They will sanitize pens and styluses and all of those things. We will try to social distance from check-in, voting booths, and where lines form, and we'll have kind of blue tape on the floor. I may get in trouble for just having blue, because that's how this works, you know. I'll have to have red and blue or some other color of the rainbow, but I think that's all you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's is the blue kind of tape, and to show people how to space out. But what we will do with the public is we'll have signs to encourage mask and facial coverings, encourage social distancing, but when it comes to voting and individuals' constitutional right to vote, I can't have any impediments to that. So we will do what we can do on our end to make sure that we are safe and that we're providing a safe environment for the public. And then the public has to do their part, but it's up to them to decide kind of what works for them. And as I said, we will encourage, but we can't require, not even in the city limits. So I just want to mention that to you all.
That's really interesting, Ron. Is there a law about that, or has there been a court decision that mandates that?
Well, one thing in the ordinance, it excluded other governmental bodies. And it just doesn't work that way. The city can't pass an ordinance that I have to follow as supervisor of elections. Okay. And I can't, and I would have to do it consistently throughout the county because I'm not a city elections official, I'm the county elections official. So it just gets into a whole lot of areas, potentially voter suppression, voter intimidation. If I start to ask people to have a mask or not having a mask and they are of particular backgrounds or things, parties or whatever, it becomes very problematic. And
yeah, it almost feels like voter suppression if you don't require the mask.
I know. It's a kind of a darned if you do. I'm trying to be the polite and PC terminology here, but darned if you do, darned if you don't in this business. So
I know.
Over here.
Sure.
So we're doing the best, like I said, we're doing the best that we can. With that said, if vote by mail is always an option for voters.
And what's the last date that they can ask for a ballot for the primary?
So 10 days prior to the election, which is a Saturday, and I'd have to look at the date, but it's 10 days prior to the election on a Saturday at 5 o'clock. So,
okay. Okay, and that includes weekend days.
Yeah, I'm looking. So it is the 8th, okay. Saturday, August 8th at 5 p.m.
Anyone can still go on your website and request a ballot.
Yeah, through that time.
At 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, after that, we won't be able to mail to them because we're not legally allowed to do that, but someone could come in and pick up a vote by mail ballot from our office after that date. And then we will have early voting. For the primary, early voting is going to run August 8th through the 16th. One of the things that I've added in for August and November is the optional Sunday for early voting prior to the election. We've never had that in Sarasota County for any of our elections. Okay. So I'm adding in the optional Sunday prior to the election So that gives that final Sunday and voters more time if they want to go vote in person, because I did my budget presentation earlier to the Board of County Commissioners, and one of the commissioners brought up a point, which is, and I think it's a valid point, we've seen this in other states, if because of social distancing and other measures, and depending on our workforce, and if we have to combine more polling locations, then that's probably going to be the case. I mean, we'll try to minimize it, but we're going to have to do what we have to do to hold election day voting in the county. It could take longer to vote, and we've never really had much lines. It hasn't really taken a long time to vote in Sarasota County, so that may be something hopefully that we're not facing, but I can't guarantee that to the public right now.
Of course. Well, it's probably good that you're having a dry run in August, because the voter turnout in August is usually very low, but that's the time when a lot of the races, the decision is made as to who actually gets on the ballot.
Well, like sheriff, and which is a very important,
right,
office. It's one of the constitutional offices, like supervisor of elections, the 5 of us, but that have a lot of great responsibility under the Florida Constitution. And these are important offices for people to make their voices heard and make sure we have, good, competent people in the right places in our county and in our municipalities, for that matter.
Yes, and the District 2, which has most of the condominiums, but throughout the city, I hope that people will go to vote in August.
Well, they have about 105 candidates to choose from, so I can't even tell you the number. One of them I see is on the name here on the line, but yeah, there's a big, there's plenty to choose from there this time. So.
And you can do it from the comfort of your home. Does anyone?
You can do it exactly. You can do it from the comfort of your condo.
Your condo, whether or not you're a member of DSCA. Does any board members have any questions? My goodness, you must have done a really good job. I'm going to open it up to the other people here. Do any of you have any questions? If you do, would you raise your hand?
I was going to say, this is the first group where I've not had any questions. That's
my goodness,
unusual. I see Ken Sheelan smiling, so.
Well, I think because you covered so many things so well, but I really, and we're going to send a copy of this video out to anybody and everybody that'll have us, so that they're going to hear the dates from you and the way to apply and when to vote.
And I would just say to voters, if they have any questions, to please go to our website at sarasotavotes.com. It's a lot of information. You can register to vote, change your party, do those sorts of things online. You can request a vote by mail ballot. You can sign up to be a poll worker, or just give us a call or email me or find me on social media. We have great social media accounts we post every day, because oftentimes I'll hear I received an email from someone in the city yesterday saying, well, I saw something on a friend account. Well, that's great, but follow our accounts and we'll give you the official version and the right, correct information that's coming from the source here, just to make sure nothing gets lost in the process or translation. So my point with all that is we try to provide a lot of information. Sometimes it seems overwhelming because it is a lot of information, but we're here to help, and we pride ourselves in our voter service, our customer service here in the elections office, and we truly want to make it a fair and accessible process for everyone, regardless of party, regardless of where they live in Sarasota County. Our job is to facilitate the process the best that we can, and we take that very seriously, but we want to help people. That's our role. Well,
my experience with your office is that it's stellar. I mean, everyone always gets back to you almost immediately, and it's a pleasant experience. So I'd really encourage people to reach out if they have a question. Anybody else? Last chance at Ron before we let him go, so he can go home and get some dinner. And okay.
Actually, just as another reminder, I'm sure, and Ron, you may want to double go over that with people. If they're voting by mail, to be sure to appropriately sign and do it individually and not jointly, etc. If you would quickly go over that, because as having served as an observer on the canvassing board That's the one disappointment, is when you see ballots rejected for inaccurate signatures and those sorts of things. So given that we have audience, we'll probably be taking advantage of that. You would just take a quick moment and go over the details on the signatures.
So one of the things, and thank you, Patrick, and Patrick has been here often in our office and observed, so he has a great deal of experience or knowledge of the process. So with vote by mail ballots, voters have to sign the back of the return envelope that has a voter certificate there. So they're executing that certificate saying that they're the ones that voted the ballot, they're returning it to us. Voters can return it by mail, or they can drop it off at drop boxes at our offices or early voting sites during early voting, if they feel more comfortable. But it must be signed. And we compare that signature on the voter certificate to the signature that we have on file for the voter to try to make a match, to make sure that it is in fact the voter returning their ballot. Sometimes people forget to sign, or sometimes signatures change over time. So it's always important, if your signature has changed, to have it updated with the elections office. But what will happen is, if a signature does not match, or if a signature, if it's unsigned, we will begin a process to contact the voter to try to cure that mismatched signature or unsigned ballot. We will send a letter, we will email, we will call by phone, and we will send a text message if we have a mobile number. We'll find 4 different ways of communication to try to provide that voter an opportunity to fix that in case of that kind of signature issue. So as Patrick said, it's better to do it on the front end and get it right when you send it to us, but we'll do everything that we can. I say we use cold compresses, warm compresses, and hold voters' hands and try to gently walk them across the finish line, at least in Sarasota County. That's the way we roll, so.
Oh, Ted Wilson. Yeah,
Ron, the other night I was listening to the news, and I think it was down in Miami. They were talking about the vote by mail envelopes that were sent out and returned having a barcode on them, where they could be barcode read instead of having to have the signatures verified on them. Have you thought about that at all?
We all do that in Florida, but it's different than the signature. What that tells us is what they're doing on that, and there may be some misinformation from the news. They still have to check the signature. We do a barcode on the envelope, and it tells us who that voter is. So when it comes back, we actually wand that or scan that in, and it automatically updates your voter record to say, we got it back on this date, and then we can tell it whether it's accepted or provisionally rejected or things. So we do that in Sarasota County also, but you still have to check the signatures. We do have an automated signature verification process. We use the same type of software that the banking industry uses. So the first pass of those envelopes, checking that barcode that you're saying, that it also reads the signature, like I said, just like financial institutions do with a check or whatever. And it tells us whether it can make those matches with data points. If it can't, then it goes to actually human beings. And then finally, a county canvassing board, which is made up of the county judge, the supervisor of elections, and a county commissioner alternate who has the final say about any of these ballots. We hold a public meeting and look at them. That's what Patrick was referring to, that he's attended before. Eileen, there was a chat question that I see from Marilyn.
Oh, okay.
She's asking about how many voting places will there be in Newtown. Maryland, to my knowledge, that they will be the same as they have been. That there hasn't been a change there, to my knowledge.
Well, what is the answer? How many?
I would have to look it up, because what is the definition, the boundaries of Newtown that you're looking at? So it's whatever it has been since I think 2012.
Okay,
So I'd have to. What's that?
I'm told it's up near University Parkway.
It's all, we haven't changed anything, everything.
That's not my question. How do people get to University Parkway if that's where their voting place is?
I'll check into it, Marilyn, but I'm not familiar that anyone from Newtown has to go to University Parkway.
Okay.
And we also have an early voting site that is accessible for residents in that area at the Betty Johnson Library that is open for every countywide election. I've committed to that library, North Sarasota Library, will always be open for early voting. So there's several options, but I'll look into the other thing that you just described. But I'm not aware of that, Marilyn. I mean, there are some up that far, but I don't know that they're for the residents of Newtown. But I'll double check.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ron. I don't know who's playing when the Saints come marching in, but if you could silence that, it would be appreciated. Any other questions for Ron? Janet?
Yeah, Janet has one.
Janet, would you go right ahead?
I just sent it via chat. Whether in the city commission election where you have 6 candidates, is it being winnowed down to the top 2 or the top 3 vote getters?
The top 2, it's a vote for 1, and then the top 2 would go to November. I think the way that the charter, when that was done, as I said, with the save the date or move the date or whatever it was called at the time, that it would always push those elections to November to make it the final election. That's my understanding of that. So.
And we will be able to get all the numbers to see how many voters there were in August, because there was a lot of talk about November, but not much talk about the primary in August.
Yeah, how that works,
right.
Because this is the first time we've done this. And so obviously we'll have more data to look at for future elections.
Excellent. But August is typically a lower voter turnout.
It
right?
is. Now, this time I would say, because normally we would have probably 30-something% turnout overall, and that's probably a good turnout for any county in Florida. We seem to have a higher turnout typically than one of the higher turnouts in Florida. We don't normally have 104,000 votable mail ballots in a primary.
Right.
So I'm thinking that many people will get a ballot that weren't possibly thinking about the primary of these races. So that could push up turnout. Will it raise turnout, or is it just taking away potentially from earlier election day? Until we have the numbers after August 18th, we're not going to know the answer to that, but it's something to think about.
Excellent. Any other questions? Well, Ron, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you're welcome
here.
to sit through the rest of the meeting if you
I appreciate it, but thanks for all that you do in the community and downtown, and stay safe and healthy, all of you. And if you need anything, please reach out and let us know. That's what we're here for. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron. We greatly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you all.
Have a good
day.
Bye-bye.